backup one?
I couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it. Okay. So, yesterday we were talking about free will, and we talked about the fact that Hashem knows the future, and yet we have free will. How to, it seems like, if Hashem knows the future, we have no choices other than to do what we did. That's what Hashem knew we were going to do. And I explained yesterday a way to solve that problem. It's on tape, I'm not going to repeat it. But the way that I described the solution is not my solution, it's a solution in the literature, in our literature. It's based on an assumption which the Rambam cannot accept. And the assumption that it's based on is Hashem gets his knowledge of what we do, so to speak, by observing it. We do it, and he knows it. Our doing it causes him to know it. He tracks what we do. And indeed, there's language in Chazal and in Psukim which does give that impression. Sofa umabit. He gazes and observes. Sofa might say from tzaddikim. He observed the actions of the tzaddikim before they took place. But that would mean that, so to speak, Hashem is receptive. Something happens and it has an effect on him. The Rambam doesn't allow that. In the first section of the guide, he says at least 6 times. Now, in the Hebrew, it's translated mispoel. He's not acted upon. Nothing acts upon him. And whereas some of the time he says that if he were acted upon, that would require him to change. If something happens and that has an effect on him, then he's in a state he wasn't in before. And we don't tolerate change for Kodesh Baruch Hu. But there are other times where he doesn't mention change. It's simply a fact that Hashem's relationship to everything else is giving to them, acting on them, providing for them, and nothing goes the other way. It's a one-way street. So the Rambam's not going to accept that. So that means we're left with the conflict between foreknowledge and free will. And not only are we left with it, but the Rambam says word for word in Part 3, Chapter 17, there's a certain school of Arabic philosophy, and they believe that God knows everything, they believe that people have free will, and a little thought will show you that that is a contradiction. And he leaves it at that. So when the Rambam discusses free will, we mustn't take what he says as a solution. Now he discusses this in the laws of tshuva. And what he says in general, there's a tricky part, which I've heard several explanations of this. What he says in general is, Hashem is beyond knowing, understanding, describing, conceptualizing. He transcends us in such a way that we can't have any mental access to him. Our language doesn't apply to him. Our concepts don't apply to him. When we have descriptions which look like, linguistically, as the descriptions of him, then what we're really describing is what he does, not what he is. And I'll come back to that in about 15 minutes and do that in somewhat more detail. So in the meantime, when you have a conflict between he knows the future and we have free will, when you have a conflict, if you drop the assertion that he has knowledge of the future, then the problem disappears. Now, you may think, wait a minute, Rabbi, you're not going to say he knows everything? So You're saying he's ignorant of things? Some things he doesn't know? No, that's not the idea. The idea is we're not going to say that he knows, and we're not going to say that he's ignorant. What? You're not going to say he knows, and you're not going to say he's ignorant? If he doesn't know, how could he not be ignorant? So, I'll show you, the Rambam makes this point in a slightly different context, but I'll show you how that could be. Let's take a stone wall. Well, a stone wall doesn't know things. That's obvious. Would you say that the stone wall is ignorant? That doesn't sound like the right description. Sounds like a stone wall is the kind of thing for which knowing things and being ignorant are equally ruled out because it's the wrong kind of thing. It's not the kind of thing that knows things, and therefore it can't be ignorant of something. By the way, the philosophers make a joke. You don't know enough Chinese to make a mistake in Chinese. You can't make a mistake if it's all gibberish. A person who doesn't know how to play chess, he doesn't know enough to make a mistake in playing chess. You got to know something in order to be able to make a mistake about something. So here you have to be the kind of thing which sometimes, under some conditions, has knowledge, and this you're missing. That's ignorance. But stone walls are neither knowledgeable nor are they ignorant. They're outside that realm. Kadosh Baruch Hu, in this respect, is beyond all of our descriptions. He's outside all of our realms. And that being the case, nothing we say applies to him. And therefore, when I refuse to say he knows, I'm not committed to saying he's ignorant. I simply refuse to talk about it at all. So now we are left with the idea that when we have descriptions, of which there are hundreds, in the Tanakh, in the Talmud, of both Talmuds, in the Midrash, everywhere there are descriptions of Hashem. These descriptions have to be understood as descriptions of what he does, not what he is. Now there's a way to work this out. Suppose you see a description of something that he is, looks like it, and you want to know what really should be understood as. There's a 3-step process to get you to what the Rambam wants you to have. Let's take mercy. Let's say he's merciful. So step 1, pretend for the moment that he really is merciful, like you and I are merciful. That's step 1. Step 2, ask yourself, if he's merciful, what would he do? What actions would he perform because he's merciful? Make a list of those actions. That's step 2. Step 3, erase step 1. Don't say he's merciful anymore, just say he does those actions. In that way, you have translated what looks like a description of what he is into a description of what he does. Those who may have studied philosophy of science and know something called fictionalism will see perhaps where I'm coming from. So at any rate, that's all we end up with. We end up with a description of actions. Now let's take knowledge. The step 1 would be to say, yes, he knows everything. He's omniscient. Step 2, what would he do if he really were omniscient? What kind of actions would omniscience base? Well, what do you do with your knowledge? One thing you do with your knowledge is you take account of the circumstances and you do something that fits. The best thing among your alternatives that fits all the circumstances. Your knowledge enables you to survey all the circumstances. He has all the circumstances, past, present, and future, at infinite depth. And in that case, the action that occurs is an action which fits those all circumstances best. Okay, now subtract his knowledge and simply say, when he does something, it's for the best. Because that's what he would do with knowledge if he had knowledge. My oldest son puts it this way. He doesn't have what we call knowledge. We can't describe him that way. But that isn't because he has less than knowledge. He has more than knowledge. He has something else which enables him to do what knowledge enables us to do, and it's much superior. It's just, it isn't done by knowledge. It's done by some other feature. So now, if we're not going to say that he has knowledge, then we're not going to have a contradiction between what his knowing the future on the one hand and our free actions on the other hand. But now, there are people who are uncomfortable with this idea. You're not going to say what he is, you're only going to say what he does. Isn't that a kind of dodge? Isn't that kind of intellectually not respectable? Isn't it an admission that you're not really serious, that you're hiding behind this because you really are incompetent to describe the reality, and we should therefore doubt whether there's any reality there or not? I can hear such a question. I can hear someone worry about it. I want to give you an example from one of the standard pieces of quantum mechanics, why this isn't a dodge, and why the most serious science has been in this position for decades. Maybe there's some who think they have a way out, but many don't think there is a way out. It's really exactly parallel. Maybe it's as interesting in and of itself. This is called the double slit experiment. You can look it up. It's famous or infamous. Now, imagine that you had a setup like this. You have a source here that shoots. Let's say it shoots bullets in every direction randomly. It's on a swivel and it swivels around and it shoots randomly whenever it feels like it. And now, here you have a barrier. With two openings in the barrier. And here you have a wooden fence. So, when this thing shoots bullets, they go in all directions. Some go off to the left, and some hit the wall, and some go through the openings. When a bullet goes through the opening, it sticks to the wooden fence. Now, we're going to try 3 experiments. Experiment number 1, we're going to close this one for the time being, and just let it shoot randomly. So, in that case, the only bullets that get through the wall go through this opening, and they're going to end up here. Going to get a bunch of hits of bullets there. That's number 1. Number 2, we'll close this one, and then, as it's shooting, it goes to the wooden fence, and we'll get a bunch of hits here, because this is blocked. And then, it should be obvious, we'll try a third one, and we'll leave both slits open. Leave both slits open, then you're going to get a bunch of hits here and a bunch of hits here. The sum total of what you got when you did this one and did this one singly, when you do both of them, you get that. That's bullets. Now, we'll try the same thing over again, this time with photons. So-called particles of light. And you can do it with electrons, you can do it with other things as well. So, here's what you get. The first time, with this closed, you get exactly what you expect. Here you have a photographic plate, and you get hits here. The second time, to the photographic plate, with this one closed, you get what you expect. You get hits there. But, the third time, with both slits open, here's a photographic plate. Now I'm glad you're sitting down. Here's what you get. You get a bunch of hits here and nothing there, a bunch 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 here behind this wall, behind it, you get some, and then a bunch here, and then a bunch here, and then a bunch here, and then a bunch here. You get rows. What's that? What is that? Where's that come from? That's nuts. When this is open, this is all you get. When this is open, this is all you get. And when they're both open, you get that. So some people thought about this. What is this doing? What is it like? Is there anything that we know that's similar to it? And they said, yes, there is. There's something that's similar to it. Let's suppose you have water. A water where there are waves. And you have a break front that looks like this, with two slits. And the waves are coming in. The waves are coming in. The waves are coming in. When they hit the break front, what they're going to do is, when it comes through here, it's going to create little wavelets going out. And when it comes through here, it's going to create little wavelets going out. Now, what is a wave? Well, a wave is the water going up and down, up and down, up and down, right? The wave doesn't move to the shore. The water, the pieces, the droplets of water go up and down. That's all they do in place. But the motion, first this goes up and down, then this goes up and down, then this goes up and down. That's what happens. Okay. Now, as they spread out, they're going to cross one another. They're going to cross. What happens when two waves hit each other? Well, it all depends upon whether, when they hit each other, they're at the same level or at different levels. Let's imagine for a moment that this wave is going down and this wave is going up. When they hit, they're going to cancel out. And it's going to be flat. Because this is pulling up and this is pulling down. So, in the end, it goes nowhere. If they're both pulling up, then they'll both go up. If they're both going down, they'll go down. And if they're what's called out of phase, if one's going up, one's going down, it's going to be flat. And when you get to the shore, what you're going to have is a wave hits here, and nothing hits here. A wave hits here, a wave hits here. Because here is where the wave, one wave was going up, the other wave was going down, so it was flat. So the people who looked at this said, I know this. I know where this comes from. This is what waves do. So, we have an explanation. When you're shooting these photons at this barrier, this stream of photons is coming out. And what happens when you have both of them here is some of the photons go through here, some go through here, but photons are waves. They act like waves. And since they act like waves, they interfere with one another, and that's why you get this pattern. Isn't that clever? Everything's fine. Up to here, everything's fine. No problem. But then these very clever scientists decided to try the experiment a little bit more slowly. So slowly, in fact, that they shoot only one photon at a time. Just one. And leave a whole minute in between. Okay, now let's see. One photon comes out. I mean, what can it do? It's one photon. Either it goes through this or it goes through this. If it goes through this one, we ought to get these. If it goes through that one, we ought to get these. One at a time. And we do that over and over again, you ought to get just the sum of this and this. But you get these bands even when you do it one at a time. Hello? Where's the interference? Both going through the openings and interfering with one another. One photon can't go through both of them at the same time. Can it? That doesn't look like it. I mean, a photon's like a little pebble, you know. It goes this way or it goes that way. Well, somehow it goes both ways, and somehow it interferes with itself, and somehow it's a wave when it's going, and you get this. Just 1 second. And notice that when you fire one photon and it goes through the barrier, over here you get a little dot. One little dot. It started out as a dot and ended up like a dot. But where it lands, it behaves like a wave. That's very peculiar. I went into one sentence because this is what people often get wrong. And Richard Feynman, 50 years ago, already pointed this out. Some people will tell you that things behave like particles in one experimental setup, and they behave like waves in a different experimental setup. And we haven't figured out what the difference is. That's wrong. Here, they behave like particles and waves in the very same experimental setup. Because when you fire it, it's a dot, and when it lands, it's a dot. And in between, it's a wave. or behaves like a wave. And the stories they tell are stories that are, they're even hard to say. Well, you use a probability of its landing in this spot, and probability itself fills the area, and the probability goes through the holes, even though probability isn't a thing, and it can't go through holes. So probability goes through, and then the probability has a wave of probability, and then interferes, and then this tells you the probability of its landing in these places, and that's why it lands there. But probability isn't the thing that goes through holes. Sorry, that's just not true. So, it's like the dot disappears, and purple fuzz appears, purple fuzz goes, and then the purple fuzz goes away, the dot, nobody knows what this is. So the standard position is, I can tell you what it does, I can tell you what the photographic plate will look like, I can show you every time where to expect the hits and the bands, that we can do. But we don't know what's going on in between. We can tell you what it does, we can't tell you what it is. I know about Bohm's pilot wave and all the rest of that, okay, we're aware that this is a standard story about quantum mechanics. So this is exactly the kind of thing we're talking about, where you talk about what it does and not about what it is. Now, you have a question?
Well, I was going to say one pebble also makes waves, one photon makes waves also.
Well, how should I say it? How should I put it? The way the pattern works out at the end, it sure looks like it, but a pebble can't. It doesn't make waves.
So how is it?
That's what I'm saying. We don't know how it happens.
So how does it connect with Hashem? That's how it connects.
Oh, so when you set up this thing with the thing that fires out photons and the wall with the two slits and the photographic plate, I can tell you what will happen. I can tell you what happens. I just can't tell you what's doing it to make it happen. That's very much like saying, I can tell you what he does, but I can't tell you what he is. I have the effects, but I don't have a picture of the cause.
I'm saying, but they know the spheres, they know the Hanhaga, they know the Malachim and the Mazalim and the different, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings his Ratzin down to this world. That sounds like, that we do know.
Yes.
No, because I'm just having a trouble how it connects. Because we know how it comes down to the table, in a sense.
Look, we know the chemistry. How come when you shine light at a photographic plate, it changes color? Because of chemistry. The energy that comes from the light is absorbed in the photographic plate, and that energy changes the color in the plate. We know that. We just don't know how the pattern comes out. Why is it this pattern? We know how long it will take. When you turn this on and you wait to get the results over there, we know how long it will take. We know a lot about what's going on. We just can't explain this aspect of it. This aspect of it, that you get the bands, is something which nothing in the description of what's going on tells us how that happens.
Could Rabbi say this point on the meaning we know that there's spheres, but I'm saying if we ever could take the mashal and put it back to of us understanding the Hanhaga, to the Nimshal, so we know that the spheres, we just don't know why Hashem chose.
No, but the spheres are themselves only descriptions of what he does. They're principles of action.
But we don't know, so where's the point? We don't know why he chose them?
No, we don't know how to describe what he is. Choosing them, doing them, we have no description for it. According to the Rambam and according to Ramchal and many others, none of our words describe him altogether. So there's nothing to say. What he is, we don't have any idea. Now, sometimes people will say, well, look, Rabbi, yeah, science can be in an incomplete state. There's some things about science. Science doesn't know everything. But at least in science, you do research and you think up new theories and you make an effort to explain. You're telling me that in your religious system, don't make any efforts because it's impossible to explain. Isn't that somehow intellectually questionable, not really honest, and hiding behind something? Well, I think I can build a bridge halfway. Yeah, with science, they're making efforts. That's true. They are making efforts. there any guarantee they'll succeed? Is there any guarantee that they can succeed? You're a materialist. You believe in the brain. The brain has about 86 billion neurons. Well, okay, it's really double because the glial cells are about the same number and they help in information processing. 172 billion processors. Couldn't it be that in order to understand how the universe works, you need 1 trillion and you haven't got? And then it wouldn't even be possible. Suppose that's correct. Does that mean something you're doing is somehow wrong, inferior, criticizable, and so forth and so on? You're doing the best that you can. You're getting a partial picture. But some of the partial picture could be true. That's definitely worthwhile doing, but you're not going to get the whole picture. If you imagine that, you say, well, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. We'll just accept it. You wouldn't cancel science. You wouldn't say, oh, it's all phony. You're all fooling. None of it's true. You wouldn't say that. What you would say is, well, we have. And then the rest of it, we don't have. And by the way, the Rambam is Medaik. It's the Pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Harini no es drachecha. Show me now your way. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will show you the things that I do. What's called the Derech Hashem. I'll show you the things that I would do. Oh, I'm sorry. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, show me now your way, ve'eda'acha, and I will know you. So knowing Hashem's way, knowing what He does and why He does it, because that's part of knowing what it is, knowing that is knowing Him, partially, of course, not totally, but is knowing something else, not switching the subject. To know what He does is knowing Him. So we do have knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only that aspect that we have knowledge of is knowledge of His actions. And that shouldn't be regarded as inferior in any way whatsoever. Yeah, you say follow it up? No. Okay, so now...
I was going to say Ve'edacha, but it's not, I think Rabbi answered it, but because it's not knowing you. I mean, it's not knowing, you're not knowing Hashem, that was the question, right?
Yeah, but...
So how's it?
Well, first of all, the Torah is on record that you are.
That's,
The Pasuk says Ve'edacha.
how does that work out? I'm saying, so how does it work
But
out?
now, why?
When you're saying
First
that-
of all, when I say that I know you, it doesn't mean I know everything about you, does it? I know the computer. I know Staten Island. I know what subways are. Does that mean I know everything about them? No. Knowing something doesn't mean I have to know everything about it. Knowing some things about it could be called knowing it, right?
So that's what we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu.
It's nowhere do you have the assumption that to say I know you means I have to know everything about you.
Ve'edacha also sounds like Ve'edacha. That's another thing I did. Hadeini nas derechacha ve'edacha, meaning I know you.
Right.
And they're like etzem, but...
Why do you say etzem? How did you get to etzem?
So it's, okay, the assumption.
But why make the assumption? To know someone or something is to know some things about it, not all the things about it. See, when you talk about a person's actions aren't like his car and his house. They aren't separable from him. This action is the action it is because he did it. Somebody else does something similar, it's not this action. The person is an inseparable part of the action. So if you know the action, you know something about the person. Ramchal says this in the beginning of Toli Rishonim. I must tell you, learning Ramchal and thinking about this, I don't see in secular philosophy, maybe I haven't read it at all, but the relationship, the metaphysical relationship between the person and his actions. What is an action vis-a-vis the person?
They're connected?
Well, think about it. This action is the action it is because he did it. The one who did it is part of the essence of the action. Subtract the person, you don't have the same action anymore. So replace it with another person, not the same action. So of course, he's in the action. The action is what he did. So if I know the action, I know something about him. a little bit like this. If I observe a person, I know one of his what we call trunos. I know he's merciful. That's a feature he has. He has a lot of other features I don't know. I don't know how smart he is. I don't know how much he knows. I don't know what profession he has. But I know he's merciful. Being merciful is a part of him, a part of him, and I know that part of him. So now being merciful is what we call trunos nefesh. It's a character trait. That's more inner. That's more inner for a human being. But knowing that he did X is also part of him. Because he did it, and it's inseparable. It wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't done by him. So knowing that he did X is also knowing something about him.
But we see by Averis, when someone does Avera, we say it's not, meaning it's not, like the Nefesh Chaim speaks about it, like, since the rock came inside, a person does Avera, because once he understands he's bad, so he can keep on doing it. Because by doing Avera, he identifies the Avera he did with himself.
Okay.
So a person, since the Chet of Adamiration, so a person keep on doing Avera. But once a person makes a differentiation between his Averis and who he is, so then he'll pick himself up, so he'll start to stop doing Averis, because he understands, I'm not going to go into the trash, because I'm a high person. So we see from Averis that's why I made a bigger question, that we disconnect the Avera and the person. Meaning, maybe because it's the guf and the guf is not the neshama.
Certainly you don't disconnect it from the person. The person has to do tshuva, right? Why? If it's not him, why does he have to do tshuva? So when you say it's not him, what you usually mean is it's not his essence. Not his essence. For example, if I say about you, you have 5 fingers. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
And on each hand, right? and you don't identify with your fingers, and the people who got to lose fingers don't become different people, and so on and so on. Still, it's true that you have 5 fingers. So this Avera, the Sifrei Musa will tell you that the Avera should be externalized from your essence. The Avera isn't who you are, but it is something that you did and you're responsible for and you have to fix. So, that being the case, it's not doesn't somebody else. It's not sitting on the shelf. It's just not your essence. Your essence isn't bad. You've done something bad. And that's something which you have to distinguish. But you don't externalize it and say, it's not me. So somebody knows something that you did. We know. I know something about him. He built a house. That's something about him. That's what he did.
So if it's something that's not bad, we could identify with his essence, or also still not?
Well, it depends. Identify means that it represents who I am.
We say Avera, it's not. To get it clear, Avera, we don't identify with the person. But let's say, like how Rabbi gave the example, he built a house.
Well, you see, it depends upon the person's attitude to the Avera. I'll tell you, for example, the Gemara says like this. Suppose a person decides to do an Avera, and then circumstances prevent him from doing it. Is he liable? Does he get punished for it? So the Gemara has rules. The Gemara says if he's a Jew, no. Even if he's a Jew, if it's a decision for Avodah Zarah, yes. Yes, he gets punished for it. And if he does it 2 or 3 times, then any other Avera also he gets punished for it. So the explanation is, does it represent who you are or not? Usually, a Jew's direction is not to do Averas. And because not to do Averas, so then this is something which happened by accident, or he was momentarily overcome by a taiva, and then he gave in. But that's not who he is, it's what he did. It doesn't express his character. If you saw that one thing and condemned him, you'd be making a mistake, because that's not who he is. But it could be who he is. For if it's for Avodah Zarah, that's changing his character so much that he does get punished for it. He becomes a different person. The person decides to worship an idol. He's changed himself into a monster. And if he does it several times, where, like you said before, it becomes like heter, then that's become part of him. And then he does get punished for it. So it all depends upon how closely it expresses what he really is.
And any other action, and besides for Avera? that we identify with the etzem of the person, meaning building a house or just doing it. Because by God, His actions, veidecha.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll tell you, that's an interesting question. And it's related to something which I had very interesting experience with. When I would talk about free will to the Talmidim, I would always hear, the only free decisions you make are decisions between good and evil. If you're deciding something that's nothing to do with good and evil, it's not a free decision. And my answer always was, listen, I hear you. I don't like that idea. I have a certain philosophy, and I have certain things that I want to do with it, and that idea contradicts it. Find me a source. If you find me a source that says that, then I'll drop my philosophy. But if you don't find me a source, I'm going to stick with my philosophy. I'm not going to agree to it. Well, I found the source. It's in the Ma'amar al Korim, the essay on fundamentals, which is printed in some editions of the Derech Hashem, and the Ramchal says it there word for word. When you decide between good and evil, you're making a free decision. If it's not between good and evil, you're just like a cat. You're just like an animal. You're programmed from above. It's okay, so I drop my philosophy. So now it comes out that only certain actions that you take on the basis of deciding are really free. That's between good and evil. So now maybe those are the ones, the good ones, the evil ones. Those are the ones which can be traced to your character. The ones that aren't, if you're not really choosing them, they shouldn't be traced to your character at all. They're just something that Kosh Baruch Hu. So that could be also. That could be also. Of course, when you change your character, then the action's relationship with you will change. As I say, because a person who does it only once, or tries to do it and doesn't succeed, won't be counted. Third time, it will be counted. If he does tshuva, then it won't be counted again, right? It will vary with who you are. And as you go through life, you sort of change who you are as you progress. So this is the Rambam's attitude towards it. And therefore, for the Rambam, it's not a problem because you can't raise the problem. The problem was a contradiction between foreknowledge and free will. And we're not saying foreknowledge anymore. So, and this isn't a loss because the Rambam, when he says you can't describe a Kosh Baruch Hu, his motivation there has nothing to do with free will. It really has to do with Achdus, with Hashem's unity. Because if Hashem had qualities, like we have qualities, there'd be a lot of them. And then the number of the qualities would be a number that applies to Hashem. And since his unity is absolute, and his unity applies in every possible dimension and every possible connection, there can't be any number that applies to a Kodesh Baruch Hu other than one. According to the Rambam, if you go deeply enough into it, even one doesn't apply. But okay, certainly no number other than one can apply, and therefore he can't have any qualities. It's Achdus, it's Shema, that denies that a Kodesh Baruch Hu has qualities. It falls out that you then can't raise the problem of foreknowledge and free will because you can't describe knowledge. That's a consequence. That's something which is an application of this idea. It's not where it's coming from. He didn't invent it in order to solve the problem of foreknowledge and free will. So, those are the two attitudes towards foreknowledge and free will. I will mention, since there's a Tosfos that says it, and people say it to me all the time, putting God outside of time doesn't help. Putting God outside of time doesn't help. The only question is, does he have his knowledge from us or not? If you put God outside of time, we ask exactly the same question. Does he know what I do because of what I do or not? If he knows it because of what I do, then the solution we said yesterday will apply. In the real world, I did A, and he knew I was going to do A, was B yesterday. And if he asked me, could I have done B? Sure, I could have done B, and if I had done B, he would have known that I do B, even if he's outside of time. And if outside of time, his knowledge doesn't depend upon what I do, then in the real world I do A, his knowledge is perfect, so he knows what happens in the real world. Now he asks, could I do B? Well, his knowledge is not going to change. His knowledge is not coming from me. So you imagine me doing B, I'd have to do B in a world where he knew A, and that wouldn't be possible. The only question, this is from the Rivash, the only question to ask is, when we imagine my doing something other than I did, are we going to say that Hashem's knowledge stays the same or not. If you say it stays the same, then I can't do it. And if you say not, if you say it changes also, then I can't do it. Whether inside of time or outside of time makes absolutely no difference. Philosophers put it as foreknowledge because they want to tempt you. They want to influence you to think, wow, he knew it yesterday. He knew yesterday, it's over. It's in the history books. It's finished. I'm acting today, but yesterday's out of the picture. So then, of course, if I imagine doing something different today, you got to hold what he knows yesterday constant. But that's not true. Because he can be affected over time. Time doesn't stop him. Time's no limitation for him. So that turns out to be a mistake. The only question is it dependent upon us or isn't it? And those are the two approaches to foreknowledge and free will. One is a solution and one is a dissolution. And I think that a problem for which we have a solution and we have a way to do an end run and avoid it is not a problem over which we have to lose much sleep. It's not a problem that crushes Jewish thinking. Okay.